87 flashback show, my very first wrestling show live, and it is in fact, well, I know it 88, whatever, it's 87 anyway. It is, the main event, of course, was the Big Boss Man versus Hulk Hogan, of course, because this is back with the Big Man Attend Initiative, so they brought in every big guy they could to make Hulk Hogan better than he was, to rise up against the, you know, all of the threats of the world, all these big threats in WWE, and only Hulk Hogan could, you know, help and save the day. Well, of course, the only ones who are slower and more,
the following
you know,
contest
whatever.
Is scheduled for
anyway,
one fall, and
Boss Man Hogan,
WWE
main event, 1987.
Championship.
And this is, yeah, anyway, it was for the title again. And yeah, I let them have their entrances due to the fact that they had entrances there. And then it's our main event anyway, so there you go. As we saw you with a Big Boss Man. Probably one, again, back then he was a very agile guy for his size. Very big guy. He was from Cobb County, Georgia. Supposed prison guard back then, of course. I think back here he was managed by the Doctor-style Slick. Of course, right here, he doesn't have Slick with him, which he didn't have with him then either. And I don't know why or where Slick was that day, but Slick was another individual who was not at this particular house show. So Boss Man ran it alone with, of course, the one everyone loves the most, the Immortal One. And of course, when Hogan came out, it was the world loved him. He was the greatest since, you know, rice pudding. Everyone loved Hogan. 1980s, 90s, today's, not me. Anyway, now, don't get me wrong, folks. It's not like I don't have respect for what he's done for, well, somewhat what he's done for the business, but also I know he's damaged a lot of the business too. But anyway, a lot of people say if it wasn't for guys like Hulk Hogan and whatnot, then the wrestling wouldn't be what it is today. And that might be true. But how about the guys who got Hogan over? Isn't it because of them that Hogan looked as good as he was? Isn't it because of them that Hogan, you know, was able to inspire so many and show all those Hulkamaniacs how important saying your prayers and taking your vitamins and believing in yourself and believing in God and all that stuff? Wasn't that the idea? Here, let's hear the announcements.
The Big Boss Man.
Yep, there he is. As I said.
Introducing the champion.
Yeah, here we go.
From Venice Beach, California, weighing in at 305 pounds, he is the WWE champion, Hulk Hogan.
Yep, there it goes. Now, minus the tearing off the shirt that was also customary for Hogan, and then, you know, waving his hand to his ear so all the fans could be loud, and then pointing to each other. Did he know how to captivate an audience? Yeah. Yeah, he did. But you know what? I could think of other guys who could do that too. Of course, back then, I was the guy, I was the 7-year-old in the audience was saying, Hogan, what's the matter? You can't hear? Your hearing's going? Because, you know, I thought that his blonde hair from where I was sitting was gray hair. So, to me, he was a little old man. And, of course, I was probably the only 7-year-old in the audience who was cheering for the Big Boss Man. Go figure. My uncle, of course, was the opposite, like everyone else who was 10 and under, and everyone else in the building who cheered for Hogan, which back in the 80s, that's what people did. They cheered for Hogan or the Warrior or those types of people. Me, I took more of a kindness and a fondness to the guys like, again, I've said it before, Rick Rude is a guy I thought was great. I thought the Honky Tonk Man, Jake Roberts, Rick Martel, Tito Santana, JYD, Mr. Perfect, Teddy DiBiase. I mean, there's so many guys who I thought. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, probably one of the greatest hands down. There were just so many guys back in the 80s that I think could have done a lot bigger things. They were a lot more entertaining and probably better champions in that matter. But, you know what? Whatever. I can't do nothing about it. This is what I got. And there I am. Sitting with all those people. Now, let me tell you what happened years and years and years later. The last time that I was at a show that Hulk Hogan was on the card for. This is the honest truth. It was at a SummerSlam. And the match was Hulk Hogan versus Randy Orton. And that was the match. It was a featured match. And because this is honestly how I believe anyone who has issues with things they don't like should handle them. Rather than sit there and be obnoxious and chant, rude things and whatnot. Now, granted, back years and years later, back when that Orton-Hogan match happened, I was already in the wrestling business for a good few years now. So, of course, I understand and I respect, what the guys are doing, but in the same sense, due to the fact that I absolutely don't support Hulk Hogan back then, and I don't think he's entertaining and whatnot, and then the fact that I know I'm going to irritate a lot of the Randy Orton fans out there. I don't obviously think that he's all that great either. And that's from being around the business a long while. And I honestly don't think Randy Orton would be where he was if it wasn't for who his dad was. I think he's a lot better than his dad. I think hands down, Randy Orton's probably one of the only really son pairings. Like if you want to look at father-son, growing up third generations or second generation superstars, I would have to say that Randy Orton would be right up there with the greatest, son over the father ever. Because I think Bob Orton, the cowboy, was absolutely nothing more than a secondary character. He was the guy that held Roddy Piper's bag. He was the guy that had a broken arm for 7 or 8 years. These are the things you associate with the cowboy, Bob Orton. I don't remember Cowboy Bob Orton. I'm granted, I've talked to guys in the business who tell me that he was a tough guy back in the day. Well, when you want to talk about, what you see in the ring back in the 80s and what you see performance-wise, I see a guy who hangs behind everybody else, who kind of, good loud guy on the microphone. He could talk, he could irritate you, like the sun, but I think Randy Orton, by far, is better than his father by, light speeds. I think Randy Orton's better performance-wise, ring-wise, star-wise. Do I like Randy Orton personally? No. Yes. Does that make sense? I don't know. To you guys, I hope it makes sense to you guys. I don't know if it does or not. But to me, I understand and I get it. So. Now, that's that. So, this is pretty much what we saw in the match, by the way, just saying. It's Hulk Hogan, Bossman going back and forth for that title. And, to be honest with you, the way they actually ended was that, no one could really, beat the other. So what they ended up doing was Hogan, for some reason, got a hold of the big boss man's nightstick when he was down, the referee was down, and as the referee got up, Hogan tried hitting the boss man with his own nightstick, and that's kind of how the match ended, which, by the way, he got disqualified for. By the way, if a champion is disqualified in wrestling, back then, in WWE, whatever generation it is, the idea is that the champion retains the title, which is what he did. So that was the result, what I got to see. Maybe now, years later, in this actual match we're seeing, maybe we'll actually have a clear winner for a change. I hope. But I want to point out the last match you saw was featured Jake Roberts and the Honky Tonk Man, which, by the way, I mentioned in that match it was a double countout, so there's no clear winner. Now, I have it arranged in the show so no one can get disqualified because I think that's a bogus rule in general. I think you either lose or, in my world, I think you either get pinned or you submit. That's how you should lose a title. What's this all about? Now, folks, I want to remind you guys that I don't play this. This is it's purely set to demo. So, I have nothing to do with any of this. Obviously, Bo Dallas did not interfere in this title match with Hulk Hogan and the Big Boss Man. But I can tell you that it was with the nightstick Hogan ended up winning. That's bogus. Yeah, that's some garbage right there. But anyway, what else is new? Hogan picks up the win. By hook or by crook. Anyway, I'd also like to point out the fact, due to the fact that Hulk Hogan used the nightstick to fight the Boss Man, he was disqualified, which means technically Boss Man defeated the Hulk Hogan. It's just due to the WWE ruling of the title can't change hands due to the disqualification or a count out. That's how that works. But anyway, that is why Hulk Hogan didn't lose his title that night. But it's also how Hulk Hogan kept his title that night, because he got disqualified, folks. And that's kind of how it worked. Not like this, but all honesty, if this was set to note there was disqualifications allowed, he would have been disqualified and he would have kept his precious title. But there you go. That's what we got. Of course, we also had about 20 to 30 minutes of Hulk Hogan posing for the audience, which I was not one of them. I quickly went to the bathroom, and that was my first wrestling show live. So I hope you guys enjoyed my kind of memory lane in wrestling classics. I am Jazz Vengeance, 20 plus years in the wrestling business, about to be a Hall of Famer at some point, New England Pro Wrestling. A Hall of Famer soon, and a multi-time champion of both places I've been, on the indie circuits and everywhere else. I've been fortunate enough to be around, and I owe it all to these guys, and this show is what woke me up to this wonderful world of live wrestling. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you for joining me. I am Jazz Vengeance, signing off. May all your dreams come true. You just got jazzed by vengeance.